I came home early from work, craving silence instead. I found my fiancée tangled with my brother on our couch. I froze. She didn't flinch. "We've been together for months," she said, like it was mercy. My mother defended them, said I was dramatic that night. I packed and left. Now they're planning a wedding. I'm invited front row. It's supposed to be healing. Renee and I used to spend lazy Sundays wrapped in each other on my parents' porch swing. Axel would bring us lemonade, teasing like a protective big brother. Back then, I thought I was lucky. The swing still creaks every time I pass it, like it remembers. I scrolled through old photos. Once there they were, laughing on that same swing. That porch became their new beginning. My end started with that smile. I shouldn't have noticed. Axel was always the golden son, football star, family clown, the one who could do no wrong. I used to joke I was the emotional support sibling. When Renee and I got engaged, he joked he'd steal her if I ever messed up. We all laughed. Now that line haunts me. My dad once said, "You two are so close, it's like you share a brain." Guess I never realized how literal that would become. The first time I saw them together after it all, it was at a family barbecue. They arrived holding hands. My mom kissed Renee's cheek. Axel laughed like nothing had happened. I stood there, plate trembling in my grip. Uncle Robert asked if I'd congratulated them yet. I left before dessert. Monica texted, "Don't make this harder than it is," like I was the one ruining the peace, like silence was the better choice. Nathan, my cousin, tried to joke about it at Thanksgiving. "Guess Axel beat you to the altar, huh?" I dropped my fork. Everyone went quiet. Renee smiled, sipping wine. Axel nudged her like it was all a sitcom. My dad asked if I was okay. I wanted to scream. Instead, I excused myself and sat on the porch swing. It creaked under me, mocking. I lit a cigarette I didn't even want, just needed air. Monica invited me to dinner, just us. I thought maybe she missed me. Halfway through she said, "They're not bad people." "Love's complicated." I stared at her plate, untouched. She talked about Renee's smile, Axel's happiness. My throat tightened. I said, I was supposed to be her happiness. She didn't reply. When I left, she hugged me like nothing had changed. That's when I knew I'd been voted off the island. And they didn't even flinch. The wedding invite came in a gold-trimmed envelope. My name, in calligraphy. No +1. "We hope you bless our union." I laughed short, bitter. Then I cried. I read it 10 times. Like maybe I misread. I didn't. I burned it in the sink. The ashes stuck to the porcelain, black flakes refusing to wash down. That night, I dreamed I was giving a toast. Woke up screaming and my pillow was soaked. No one called. They held an engagement dinner at our childhood home. I wasn't told. It showed up on social media. Renee wore the necklace I gave her. Axel gave a toast. My parents beamed in the background. I stood outside that night, across the street, watching through the window like a ghost. A neighbor waved. I turned away. The light from the dining room spilled onto the sidewalk. I took one photo, then deleted it. Ghosts don't keep souvenirs. At my dad's birthday dinner, Axel raised a glass and said, "To family, flaws and all." Everyone chuckled. I didn't. Renee leaned close to him, kissed his cheek. Monica asked if I'd take a photo. I did. Then I left the room. In the hallway, I punched the wall. It didn't crack. My knuckles did. I wrapped them in a napkin and told no one. That was the last time I sat at that table. Renee sent me a message. "Can we talk before the wedding?" I said yes. Out of morbid curiosity, we met at a coffee shop. She wore my favorite color. Her eyes didn't flinch. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. I asked if she loved him. She nodded. I asked if she loved me. She hesitated. "In a way," she said. That way shattered something final. I left my coffee untouched. She stayed behind. I went to the cemetery that day, our grandma's grave. She raised Axel and me when our parents worked overtime. I sat by her stone, told her everything. "They betrayed me," I whispered. The wind didn't answer, but I felt something shift. A memory, her saying, "Truth always shakes out, sweetheart." I stared at her name until it blurred. When I stood, my knees ached. I hadn't cried that hard in years, but I finally breathed. The rehearsal dinner was invite only and Monica begged me to come. "It'll mean a lot to your brother." I showed up. Renee smiled like a bride on a magazine cover. Axel hugged me tight, too tight. "Thanks for coming," he said. I smiled back, dead-eyed. During dessert, someone played our engagement video by mistake. Gasps of silence. Axel looked pale. Renee left the room. I stood, lifted my glass and said nothing. Then I walked out for good. That night, I stayed at a motel 2 towns over. Cheap, quiet, anonymous. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. Thought about all the versions of myself I'd left behind: son, fiancé, brother. I showered, shaved, and drove without music. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just existed. That was new. That was something. The sun rose as I crossed the county line. I didn't look back. For once, the rearview mirror stayed clean. 2 weeks later, Monica showed up unannounced. She brought pie, said she missed me. We sat in silence. Then she asked if I'd reconsider coming to the wedding. It would mean a lot to them, not to me. I asked, "Did you ever think maybe I deserved better?" She didn't answer, just poured more coffee. When she left, she kissed my cheek like I was 12 again, but she took the pie dish back empty-handed. Robert called me after months of silence. "They want you to give a speech," he said. I laughed so hard I choked. "Are you serious? You're the best man," he added. My mouth went dry. "I'm not a prop," I said. He said nothing. I hung up. That night, I wrote a speech, not for them, for me. Every word was venom and truth. I didn't know if I'd use it, but writing felt like armor. I posted a photo of Renee and Axel on social media. Captionals is, "Just them smiling on that porch swing." Comments exploded. Old friends messaged me privately. "Wait, what? Didn't you date her? Weren't you engaged?" One even said, "I always thought you two were perfect." I didn't reply to any of them. But I watched the likes roll in. A silent army of questions piling up behind that one image. My silence had become its own scream. The family group chat lit up. Monica messaged, "Take that post down." Axel followed, "That was low." Renee sent nothing. Nathan replied with a popcorn emoji. I didn't delete it. Instead, I posted a second picture, my engagement ring in a glass of whiskey. Caption, "Recycled vows taste bitter." Silence followed. Then one by one, I got blocked. Monica first, Axel next. Robert just left the group. Nathan stayed. He changed the group name to LOL. A week before the wedding, I got a letter. Handwritten from Renee. "I hope one day you'll understand," it said. Not forgive, just understand. Inside was the necklace I gave her, wrapped in the napkin from that coffee shop. No apology, just that. I held it in my palm for hours. Debating, then I mailed it back. No note, no return address, just a clean envelope. Some gifts aren't meant to be returned or kept. Nathan called me drunk. "You were right, man," he slurred. "They're messed up." I asked what happened. Axel hit on my girlfriend. At his own bachelor party, I didn't gloat, just listened. "Family doesn't mean shit if they treat you like dirt," he said. I said nothing. He laughed, bitter. "You gonna crash the wedding?" "No," I replied. "I already burned the house down," he said. "Hell of a view from the ashes." "Huh," I smiled. "I found a job posting in Seattle. Senior editor, big leap." I applied on impulse, not expecting much. A week later, interview scheduled. The morning of, I hesitated. My old self, the one who built futures around people, wanted to stay, but I packed anyway. The plane ticket felt like a middle finger to everyone who said I'd never move on. In flight, I drafted a speech again, not for them, but for the version of me worth hearing. The job interview felt surreal. Polished floors, confident smiles, zero mention of my past. I answered questions clearly, kept my voice steady. When they asked about resilience, I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Life tests loyalty in strange ways." I passed. They nodded. When I stepped outside, the sky was a bruised purple. I didn't know if I'd get the job. But I realized I don't need closure from them, just a damn new beginning. Wedding day came. I wasn't there. Instead, I hiked a lonesome trail near the Washington coast. My phone buzzed, nonstop photos, tagged posts, one from Monica, caption, "Family forever." I powered off. At the cliff's edge, I screamed once, raw, throat shredding. The wind took it. I tossed the last photo of us, me, Renee's, Axel, into the ocean. It fluttered, then vanished. That moment was enclosure. It was defiance. I chose to disappear from their narrative entirely. Months later, I got the job, moved to Seattle, new apartment, new skyline, new silence. One night, I passed a couple laughing on a porch swing. It stopped me cold. I stood there until they noticed, smiled politely. I nodded back and kept walking. I didn't flinch. That night, I hung my own swing on the balcony, sheet metal, creaky as hell. But it was mine. That creak no longer mocked me. It greeted me home. Renee emailed me out of nowhere. No subject line. "I think of you sometimes." It read just that. No apology. No explanation. I stared at it for an hour. Then I archived it. Not deleted, just filed away like an old receipt for something I'd returned. She was a ghost who no longer haunted, just hovered. I made tea. Didn't check my inbox again that night. Some messages aren't answers. They're echoes of unfinished sentences. Axel's face showed up on a podcast clip, something about family loyalty and business ethics. He was polished, confident, fake. I listened for 3 minutes. When he said, "I owe everything to my support system," I shut it off. No fury, just boredom. I made a sandwich, fed the dog I adopted last month, named him Ghost. He sleeps by the swing now, doesn't bark much, but he stays close, like he knows I once shattered quietly. At a Seattle bookshop, I met someone at Jules. They asked if I needed help finding a memoir. I said no, but we talked for an hour anyway. Their laugh didn't echo Renee's, their questions didn't prod like Axel's. Jules didn't know my past, and I didn't offer it, but I smiled more in that hour than I had in a year. We exchanged numbers, no promises. Just potential. Sometimes, healing starts with a stranger's kind silence. Jules and I got coffee again. This time, I told them a story. Not everything, just the porch swing, the betrayal, the pie dish. They didn't ask for more, just said, "That sounds awful." No advice, no judgment, just presence. We walked back through the drizzle. Ghost trailed behind, his leash loose at my door. Jules said, "Next time you pick the place." I nodded. It felt easy, like something new, not something trying to replace old. I visited a therapist. First time in years. She asked, "Why now?" I said, "Because I stopped bleeding, but I never stitched the wound." We talked about family, identity, grief. She didn't push, just listened. At the end, she asked, "What do you want moving forward?" I said, "Peace, ownership of my story." She smiled. I walked out feeling lighter, like maybe healing wasn't a destination, just a series of brave, quiet choices. 1 hour at a time, a package arrived, no return address. Inside, a photo album, childhood shots of Axel and me. Tucked inside was a note for when you're ready. "Mom." I closed it gently. Didn't open the pages, just sat with it in my lap. Maybe one day I'd flip through, but not today. Today, I placed it on a shelf. Not in anger, just pause. Some bridges don't burn, they stand, untouched, waiting for footsteps that may never come. I sat on my balcony swing, Ghost curled at my feet, and watched the city blink to life below. The skyline didn't judge, didn't ask questions, it just existed, bold, indifferent. I thought about everything I lost, and what remained, my breath, my space, my damn swing. I gripped the metal armrest, grounding myself. Renee, Axel, the silence of family, they were chapters, not definitions. I wasn't whole yet, but I wasn't shattered either. That counted. That was enough for now. I wrote again, just a blog post. Anonymous, what healing feels like after betrayal. It wasn't poetic, just real. I hit publish and forgot about it. A week later, someone commented, "You put my heart into words." I cried, but not out of pain, out of recognition. Maybe my hurt wasn't unique. Maybe that was comforting. I lit a candle, let Ghost sniff my hand, and whispered, "We're getting there, huh?" He thumped his tail. Healing, I realized, is quiet. 6 months after the wedding, I received a postcard, Seattle skyline on the front, back read, "Hope you're okay, Axel." No return address, no apology, just that, I didn't tear it up. I pinned it to my fridge below Jules' magnet, beside Ghost's vet reminder. It wasn't forgiveness, it was placement. I stood there, sipping coffee, letting the silence stretch. My past had mailed itself to my present, but I didn't let it dictate the future. I turned toward the window. The swing creaked. Somewhere inside me, something finally let go.